I think instead of me introducing all you,
All
I will
right.
just, you guys can.
We're recording and we are apparently going live on YouTube.
Beautiful, wonderful. We've made it another afternoon. Here we are on the 5th DEM Pure Educational Series.
And today we have like a whole plethora of amazing pure certified farmers, and seeing all of your faces just totally brightens my day. And again, big gratitude for Marcus for hosting us here on his YouTube channel, so everybody can tune in and listen. And today is number 5 of our educational DEM Pure series, and we're going to be tackling the definition and what regenerative means to us. It's a word that's really close to our hearts, and yeah.
It's really beautiful to, have cannabis in our lives and be able to speak about it and just to really embody it nowadays. And now we're just trying to keep it real, with the whole corporate cannabis aspect and stuff. But also, yeah, I just wanted to big up the Hash Church community and anyone who's, on this right now, because you all have really, kind of driven to, just give some respects to the Hash Church community and being on this channel and everything. But
and we wanted to take a second because so many people have been in isolation. Our lives are so incredibly different. That's what brought us even here to be doing this educational series and to see all of us. And I've been really meditating on the incredible opportunity of being at home. Is like, we're relearning ourselves for the first time. We're seeing ourselves outside of our everyday lives and the suits that we put on or the clothes that we put on or who we tackle to be each day. And I'm really, for the first week that we were all in isolation, it was really difficult. And now I'm seeing this beautiful awakening, like a flower blooming, where people are getting into their families and they're learning about who they are,
and we feel
without all these external responsibilities. So I just really want to encourage everybody that when we exit this solitude, this time of isolation, that we'll all know ourselves a lot better and we'll know our families a lot better. And all of the things that maybe we thought were important at the top of our list of importance may now be at the bottom. And now we have new values. And that's just been really exciting to me.
And we know that some of you are not on a piece of land, and maybe you're in a building, and you're in all parts of the world. So, we recognize if you're in a small building, it could be really difficult. And I really feel for you on that. So maybe we can just, beam some of our love to you and everything, and just kind of acknowledge you on that existence. That's tough, and we've chosen to be on the land, and today we're going to give you some reflections on what it means to us. We're discussing regenerative agriculture today, and we're discussing regenerative cannabis and what regenerative cannabis means. It's a term that people have been embodying, and today we're going to define how is it different than organic, and why isn't organic good enough? And regenerative as a word has been around for quite a long time, for decades now. And the Rodale Institute and the son, Robert Rodale, the son of J.I. Rodale, actually coined the term regenerative for what that means. And they have put a lot of effort forward to teach people how to compost and how to farm even on a large scale regeneratively. And I encourage people to look up, the Rodale Institute and what they've done there. And one of the biggest issues in life right now, from an agricultural perspective, is that there may be only 60 years of topsoil left on the earth. And there are huge dead zones in the ocean. And we really, as cannabis people, that, there's a part of our consciousness when we smoke, we're connected with nature, and we're seeing what's happening outside, and we just really want to make a big difference. So when we hear about the ailing, of the earth or the waterways, we just really want to make a difference. And regenerative cannabis is a catalyst for us. It's a bit of a focus for us. We're a cannabis community, and we're choosing cannabis as a catalyst. and we're bringing food into that, and we're bringing medicine, and we're bringing superfoods, and we're bringing in this way of life. We're bringing in medicine and schools, and we were bringing back diversity. We're bringing back biodiversity and plants. And that's what regenerative agriculture is to me. Is there something you'd like to add to that?
No, I just wanted to open it up. I want to hear what you guys have to say. Brandon, Amanda, you all have been doing amazing work in regenerative cannabis. The education that you all have put forward and what you all are doing for your community is just so incredible. I'm so honored not only to know you, but for you all to be a part of the DEM Pure certification. I wanted to hear from you guys first, like, what does regenerative mean to you? Where have you come from to get to this incredible place?
You know, I think the immediate word that comes to mind is inclusion of all of the elements, of all of the animals, of all of the waterways, inclusion of all types of people. I think that's really what regenerative is to me, is not singling anything out and not seeing something as a problem, but maybe just an imbalance that we can come in and help tend to and create balance where it doesn't exist already.
Yeah, for sure. I kind of, my thought that pops into my head is trusting in nature, because I feel like nature has all the answers and all the keys already, that we have to just kind of trust in that nature and not have to go outsourcing things because it already has everything we need. So it's like, what I think is like every plant has the nutrients to grow that same exact plant again, whether you can break it down, you know, in the like proper way for that next year. So I think regenerative is keep on, you know, like adding fertility and nutrient density. And that's, you know, that's a big thing for us. We're growing you know, a handful of food here with our herbs side by side. And after all these years of doing it, you know, we really can tell that you know, the things are tasting sweeter. Things are, you know, bigger and lusher. And I think that's all because of also love, you know, tons of love pours, you know, into this whole recipe. So regenerative also, I think, means love. We you know, we pour that back into it and it gives it back to us. So it's this whole circle of love too.
That's just so beautiful. And what do you guys have going on your farm? Tell us a little bit about yourselves and who you guys are.
Well, we're Garden of Greece, and we just have a small 5-acre homestead where we grow a very diverse amount of medicine and food. And we are currently working on, well, we just finished building a sauna, which is a really amazing self-care practice for us that we haven't really been able to include in our lives because we're always at the farm and we're always really busy. So it's been really amazing to be able to bring that here and not have to leave anymore to enjoy that.
Yeah, it's pretty much like all the times that we put here, we see how much effort and all the money that comes back into it, it goes right back into itself. So we kind of see this as an opportunity to just build more of this homestead to this higher level of righteousness is what I kind of feel. So we bring in all these other things, biodiversity and the bug life and all that, you know, and the animal life. We got 7 alpacas. We're getting a handful of chickens again this season. We go through rounds of chickens about every year, not every year on the layers, but every year on the poultry birds. We do poultry birds, so we'll raise anywhere from 50 to 100 chickens at a time and process them for our own food. And we'll also trade that with our neighbors, and you know, for goods and maybe even hours of work. So it really just opens up this whole world. I mean, like, our farm is almost like, you know, so what's the word I'm looking for? Different avenues to make money and to mainstream our living. So it's not just cannabis, you know, cannabis is really, I think, a stepping stool to all these greater good of things that we all need in life. It's not just the one. So I always used it as a stepping stool. I didn't want to, you know, not appreciate what it brought me in all these years, you know. So I gave back to it by just, you know, putting more into the land And, you know, now we're growing also, yeah, we're growing a bunch of broccoli. We got already cauliflower, broccoli sowed in. We got some lettuce, carrots, beans, peas. What else? That's just in one hoop, actually, right out front here.
All the spring vegetables.
Some spring veggies,
And
yeah.
then on a bigger scale, we actually are signing a lease this week for a 15-acre piece of farmland that we're going to be leasing for possibly the next year or two. And we're going to do the same thing there. Currently, right now, the person that had it before us tilled the property and then didn't reseed it or do anything to it. So you talking about topsoil, Josh, really hit home for me because first of all, we live in a riverbed. And so topsoil is something that we don't have the luxury of having. So we've been working on that for a while. And then at this place, it's actual pasture farmland, something we've never really gotten the opportunity to work with before. And so we're really excited to see what we can do with that. And we want to put chicken tractors on the land and do more intensive small style grazing and rotate our alpacas there. And we, are just planning on hopefully bringing more people into our community and allowing them to come to the farm and really see what we're doing and how it can work.
Right. We want to do some classes. We want to do some inoculation classes on some hugel stuff and how to build a hugel and just a bunch of stuff. And, if we have the power to kind of do this at this land, and I feel like we could do it every week, so it's whoever's local and whoever's in town. I mean, I feel like we can start having some real good fun over there and, to open it up to everyone, because there won't be any hemp or cannabis or anything grown like that nature, but we're going to plan on doing over an acre of food and just kind of see where that goes. This is kind of just the first time we're going to take on a project like this. And I feel like we're not, I guess, as early as maybe I wanted to be, because I kind of wanted to deal with all the paperwork and everything with the people already and then focus on all the plant stuff. But we already got so many plant things now going in line. But yeah, it's all coming together.
I think just experimenting too. We always try something different every year. We always plant a new area of our garden that we've never seen anything grow in before. And so I think just taking that chance is something that's really exciting about regenerative farming too, is there are no mistakes.
All good experiments. Yeah, happy accidents are great things to say.
Yeah.
You guys are so fun too. I really love watching your stories and just your whole, experience. And I think that's kind of a bit of the secret sauce, to being able to be a gardener, to entice young people to be farmers. It's like, hey, it's not just this burly, terrible all day thing. It's a culture, it's fun. You can go out there and have a heck of a good time.
Hell yeah. We try to keep that stoke level real high, because anybody can get burnt out by something, dying, and death is a huge part of farming. So things die constantly. So if you're going to get bummed out on things, it's not going to make it any easier. So just getting stoked on the next thing is really all, we really keep on striving for. And
we were painting bird boxes last night because we want to create more habitats for birds and bats and owls. We just put up a bunch of new habitats all over our property. So we're always just trying to, expand what we got going on.
Upgrade. We can always.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
For sure.
Beautiful. I want to dive into some of your aspects a little bit later as we get through some of the other introductions, but you guys are.
Yeah, I was going to say too, we're also trying to put in a mini ramp here soon, so we can get not just the bike track, because I love the bike track for sure, but I need to get skating again. My legs need to get working. So we'll see a lot more of that. That'd be
good one. I totally want to get the skate ramp going too. Exactly. That sounds fun. I have a mountain board with the air tires, and you can cruise down.
Yeah, dude, really it's gnarly. I mean, gardening and fun have to go hand in hand. You got it. You just got it. It's that love that I think the plants vibe off of, and it's real. It's when it's going down.
Give thanks, Jacob and Carla, out in the beautiful Trinity Mountains, Northern California. It looks beautiful in your area there. I'd love to hear from you all today and introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about some of your aspects of regenerative agriculture and some of the things that really inspire you.
So on our farm, we're really inspired by old world farming and traditional farming practices. and how those farms, you know, they were all sustainable farms. They existed with what they had around them, you know. So Josh is holding up our book. So, you know, on this quest to figure out how to make our farm regenerative, we created a book that kind of illustrates the practices that we're using to be regenerative. And I think the culmination of, you know, your regeneration is really to see your farm as more like an old world farm. And as cannabis farmers, you know, we grow weed, we don't, you know, we smoke weed and we're not drinking wine. So that's kind of the thing. Like we have animals and we have food and we have medicine, and it all comes from here, and we're all linking all the pieces to make a really clean product for the people who are buying it, but for ourselves as we live. And you know, it's a family farm and we want to take good care of ourselves. Yeah, so one of the things that we're doing specifically is we're working with cows, and so we're building our own compost, and that's been quite an adventure, chasing them around and tackling calves and stuff. But we're able to build a lot of compost and a lot of soil, and we're doing an intensive rotational grazing where we move them every day, and so the land is never overstressed, and so they come back around to the same place maybe 4 times a year. And so we're building a lot of soil that way, and we've really seen our pastures improve. And you know, it's amazing what can happen, and it's really something that anybody can take part in. And I think that's the important thing about regenerative. Like we've been talking about greenwashing and things like that. And, you know, the people who are greenwashing need to realize that they're part of the problem, right? Because regenerative farming is about solutions for people to make the world better for themselves. We don't need the government. We don't need, you know, stimulus checks. We just need to get out there and move some sticks around and move some dirt around and collect some manure and watch what can happen. Because all of a sudden this year, you know, we have these animal systems and we have the gardens, and now we're really feeding ourselves, and we're feeding ourselves in a way that we never really dreamed possible when we lived in the city, where we're having like boar liver pâtés for lunch with homemade cheeses and things like that, you know, we never never experienced these things before. And because of our integration of all of these practices, you know, we're able to live a better life, and I hope we can see that for everybody.
Being really connected to your food source was ultimately what brought us here, and cannabis was part of that journey for us. And we were originally living in the city for a long time. We're artists and we are musicians, and we lived in San Francisco, right in the middle of the city for years. And we had lugged a bunch of organic soil up to our rooftop and built beds up there and had a worm bin and grew our own veggies on our roof in San Francisco, because you can grow kale and teeny little cannabis plants for yourself. But you know, about a decade ago, we just really were driven to find a really sustainable life and to really search out what that meant. And we ended up here in Trinity County, where in a kind of a homesteading community where there's a tradition of raising your own food, and everybody has enough that there's more than enough for you. And we're in year 6 on our own land here, and we're seeing enough fertility to be able to supply not only a substantial amount of food for ourselves, but to also have surpluses to provide for our local community. And so to have pasture raised food that's also giving back to the land more than you're taking is what you know, has really been key to our regenerative systems and is part of what has really helped us define, you know, what building your own fertility and regenerating the land and giving back more than you take really means. And we also grow a lot of veggies and a lot of perennials and a lot of medicinal plants of all kinds, and really believe in integrative systems. And so we're just really trying to be a part of a larger integrated ecosystem and create community around that, where we're all providing abundance from our own resources for ourselves and each other. So that's been our goal, and it's been really powerful to see, you know, our work coming to fruition. Everything you put in, you know, sowing seeds and seeing what happens from there. And it's a journey. Every year it gets better and we learn more different things.
And you're raising your children on the land, and it's a beautiful thing. And you guys are beautiful musicians, amazing musicians. We've all,
Super
a lot of us
accomplished musicians.
have heard you. Do you guys get to play music for your plants, and do you find that they respond to that?
That's right. They definitely respond to music, and now with being at home all the time, I've had a little more time to start playing music again. But yeah, making time to play music for the plants is always great. That was my first science experiment when I was in 4th grade, was what music do plants like, and do they respond to music, and what kind of music do they prefer?
Was it Stevie Wonder or?
They like classical music, actually, Mozart.
Nice. No,
That's
that's
awesome.
good. That's good. I just The Secret Life of Plants from the 70s was a really excellent movie, and they did a lot of, you know, interesting experiments on plants.
Yeah, and it was
stuff.
They
classical and
like
jazz.
all
Yeah.
music. They love jazz. They like a lot of different.
I noticed.
They'll rock out to anything.
I noticed cannabis especially likes jazz.
Yeah.
They have this little.
They like
Jazz
bebop
hands.
and like fast stuff.
Exactly.
And-
Someone's got to love Neil Diamond. There's got to be a plant out there.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love
who
Neil
doesn't love Neil Diamond?
Maybe that's where the Diamond OG came from. I don't know. I don't know.
Sure, those were diamonds, you know. And we wanted to talk to you, Kate and Bobby, Ancient Green Farms. You guys are amazing. This couple, I just want to let everybody know out there, is so incredibly hardworking, beautiful. Bobby, you're an incredible extractor. Anybody can builder. The stuff that you all have done on your farm, every time you put up a post, it takes my breath away. And then meeting you all at the Hive gathering, I mean, I just felt like you've been an extension of all of you all, or just like family. And I just want to hear from you all about what's going on in Maine, and what have you been up to out there, and what does regenerative mean to you guys?
You want to take it? You want me to take it? So regenerative to us, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It's all about generating life, and life in the soil, life above the soil. Is just constantly bringing life onto the farm in various ways, and really with just like soil microbes, the animals, growing your own food, starting the seeds. Right now we're putting up some hoop houses. We're getting the wallapini ready for plants, and really just starting to grow a lot of food alongside our medicinal herbs of all different varieties. Making compost. Really, springtime is a very busy time for us here. So we're always making medicine, we're growing medicine, extractions, and it's always a busy time.
When we first moved here, there really wasn't a lot going on. I mean, I could identify maybe 3 plants on the land. I'm sure there were many more, but there just was not a lot of biodiversity here. So
Overgrown forest.
Yeah, we've spent the entire time we've been here trying to figure out how to make this place biodiverse. And lush and the land fertile, and it's amazing what can happen in a short period of time. And I mean, a short period of time as in 4 years, you know, that's not short to everyone.
In a lifetime. In a lifetime. It's
So I mean, when we started here, it was just overgrown with trees so much it was just unhealthy. There were dead trees everywhere, and slowly just cleaning it all up and making small little pastures, making small dents here and there, and
so just feeding everything back to the land.
And that's where the dead trees comes into hugelculture, and that became like a absolute foundation of our farm. And we have transformed this place with must be a dozen different styles of hugels, just everything, whatever we felt right, however we felt we should make it, whatever contoured to the land or wherever we could easily get the material to, and watch where the water flows and make swales and berms. And really it's just we learned to start small and then build up to bigger projects, and just kind of all downhill from there, or uphill, I guess you could say. But it's been a learning curve, and we've enjoyed every minute of it, really.
Well, not every
I love that.
There are bad minutes, but there are also a lot of good minutes.
So it's I feel like I had another point a second ago.
Sorry. One thing that I wanted to say was it looks like there might be a little bit of a lag.
I wanted to touch on scale, and for people at home who maybe don't have 40 acres to play on and, you know, kind of work with. And it's regenerative really is about starting with what you can, where you are, and just using your own thought process to really kind of figure out what you can do with what you have. Is just been a tremendous lesson that I've learned, is really just trying to figure out what, you know, how big can you go with what you have to work with, and then just build up slowly from there and be okay with that. And that's kind of what we've just been doing year after year, is just slowly building up, you know, one project at a time, and taking one thing more seriously and working on that, and then the next thing, and it's the worm farm, and now, you know, the veggies and the compost, and it's just kind of keeps growing. And that's regenerative as a lifestyle, as just kind of becomes how you live and how you treat the land. And like, it's just, that's kind of what regenerative means to me, at least.
And I would tell anybody trying to get into regenerative farming to diversify, like Brandon and Amanda said, with your revenue streams. Like, make everything either make you money or help you out in some way, or
we're splitting firewood. We're, you know, I mean, there's other options and ways to pay the bills, and veggies and all different types of food
eggs
products.
And meats to barter. And
exactly. And for us, the chickens have been monumental for us. I can't recommend having the chickens in numbers. They do so much for our farm. They feed us, they feed our animals, they feed the soil, they feed everything. And in turn, they just work the land all day, every day. And then they give us food, and it's just, it's endless, the benefits, really. So, yeah.
I love it. I love it. A lot of the regenerative farming, you know, is, you know, out in Oregon and out in the West, you know, but here we are up in British Columbia, and you're out in Maine, and we got people really everywhere. It's not a thing, but it's just when the cannabis, there's a lot of it grown out here. So it's beautiful to see you all just really break in and just make it happen. You know, it doesn't matter where you live. You can grow underneath the sun. There's always a season. And maybe that'll lead us into season and how you're doing, and what's going on the Five Sisters farm down there in Northern California. And maybe you can shed some of your beautiful energy and all of the things that you've done on your farm. You're such a fabulous person, important in your area and beyond. And
huge community leader. Those of you who don't know this woman, she is absolutely unbelievable. She's always got a smile on her face. Susan, you bright up the room everywhere you go. You seem to know everybody. You're totally connected in on the community.
You're a ganja warrior. You've been through tons of shit. We totally want to acknowledge you on that. Like, big up, sister. You know, you made it through a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You know.
So what's going on? What's going on with you?
there's a lot going on at Five Sisters Farm right now. I just have to agree with what Ancient Tech was saying about the chickens and diversifying. I'm really excited to have increased my flock this year. Got 10 new chickens. Today I gathered blackberry tips, made the FPJ. I was planting bulbs for a cut flower garden, some gladiolas. I moved mulch around. I mean, yes, it's true. It's a fine balance of, it's like an orchestra, you know, a symphony of every little thing. It is a lifestyle, and it's something I enjoy very much. And I just feel very grateful to be able to do it every day on my property. And I feel.
Go ahead.
What was that?
I was just wondering what maybe you were doing new on your farm this year that you weren't doing before.
Oh, definitely expanding with the cut flowers. There's my little cat, Sophie. Cut flowers, you know, I've decided I have one section of my garden that was just uncultivated for a while, and I knew it had really great soil underneath there. So I just decided to buy a bunch of bulbs, Asiatic lilies, gladiolus, liatris. Started a lot of seeds for zinnias, things like that. And I plan on cutting and selling at the farmer's market at the town square or down there at the One Log. I'm really lucky to have a few pretty active markets really close to me and connected with those. So I'm just trying all sorts of different things. I applied for a grant at the Trellis program. Humboldt County offered a grant, and I hope to expand my licensing to include tourism this year. So that's my new thing. Sounds like I'm in a pretty good running for the grant. So I'm just crossing my fingers for that.
Can you tell us about your tourism piece for a moment? Because you know that's I like that. You know, it's important. Sometimes just getting out of the city, being able to sit in the garden is enough healing in itself. So what are some of the aspects you're taking on there?
Well, tourism, you know, Humboldt County is wanted to rebrand itself as like the Napa of weed, and so you know, supporting the emerging tourism businesses is a way for me to do consumer outreach, direct consumer outreach that, you know, otherwise it's been really hard for us to get. So giving people a firsthand experience, walking them through a garden is, you know, a lot more than what someone can experience through Zoom or through any workshop or, you know, a demo at a dispensary. And I feel like being able to invite people rather than try to keep people out forever. We had fear of how to keep people out of our patch, you know, and my location's right on Highway 101. You know, a lot of people were worried for me having a farm so exposed. And instead of being fearful, I decided to invite people and open it up rather than try to close people out, because that's, you know, I try not to live in fear. So that was a great way for me to, you know, find a solution and that possible problem that I've really never had to experience. Because of the good vibes, you know, I've never really had any threats being on the side of the road, and people can see you know, they can see my garden, and it's great. I welcome people rather than try to keep them out. I really feel like there's a lot to learn just from observing what's going on. And in the 5 years I've been on my farm, it's been a huge change. And the people who've known me, it's really inspiring to the people who, you know, had responded in scaling up and really criticized me for staying so small and boutique. And I don't think they understood that it was more of a strategy than they realized, you know, and also just a way to survive. It's very resourceful. I don't think I might not be able to stay in business without these practices. And so it's very empowering for a single person to be able to make so much.
That just leads into, I mean, you really explained a term too about regenerative, and What does that mean to you and your farm, and the choices that you've made to get to where you are now?
For me, I'm really reveling in just how many plants are reseeding themselves without me even having to. I don't have to sow them and put them in a hoop house, to put them in a piece of plastic, to put them in the ground. I am able to direct sow them in the ground, and they are filling in like so healthy, so thick. And I can see where the parsley has, like in another garden area, is not as green and doesn't have as much water, but the parsley and the hugels is just lush and full and giant. And I know that's because of all the water that's like a sponge, holding. The hugels are like a sponge. Just amazing, the difference in the growth. So I had a woman come from, her name Catherine, from Symbio Soil. I met, she said, I want to come check out your compost under the microscope. And when she got there, she said, oh, I don't need to look at your compost because look at how healthy your plants are. So that was a good feeling to know that here's a soil scientist coming, to say, oh, I think it's okay because look at how abundant your soil is.
That's awesome. I mean, our farms all really go the opposite of, losing 60, topsoil in 60 years. I mean, the amount of topsoil we put on our land in the last few years it's insane.
And
I mean, it can be
what
feet,
it would be like all of us together, because I know that's what we're all doing.
The accumulated topsoil on our farms is 840 feet. I don't know what it is. But,
I used to joke while I was at Daisy's, working at Daisy's, how much bagged soil was being shipped. And I said, dude, we're going to tip the world's axis. All the peat moss, all the Earth's crust is being shipped to Humboldt County in a bag. So I'm really glad that people are, steering away from that practice.
That is a monumental change. The amount of peat moss that has stopped being used in our cannabis community based off these regenerative practices is phenomenal. I mean, we're talking semis and semis of trucks that are not being used in the same way. And that's, not to say anything bad about any one thing, but this is a beautiful thing. And it's, we're building our indigenous microorganisms on our land. I have, thank you so much, Susan, for that. We'll come back to you and some of the aspects on your farm, and we really appreciate you. Marcus, I was wondering, you've done amazing filming and incredible photos, and you've just been exposed to resin and trichomes and everything over the years. And I feel like your promotion of solventless and ice water hash really lended itself to our regenerative community. And it's something we all really embraced. And I want to, again, thank you and the Hash Church community for helping build that up. And what are some of the ways you've seen organic or regenerative agriculture in resin, or can you explain some of the aspects you've seen in your experience?
Well, I mean, obviously, initially when I started making hash like 25 years ago using water and ice, that it was mostly salt-grown product that was coming across my table. Now, that changed fairly quickly. I had already smoked, organic hash that had just blown me away, and I couldn't understand how it could possibly be that strong or that tasty. It was also from like my mentor, Skunkman Sam, back in like the mid 90s. So, him and Rob Clark at the time just had the most insane, ridiculous resin. And it took me a long time to understand, like, oh, right, he went and lived in those countries and like all the hash producing countries in the world, and then collected seeds and then took those seeds to his greenhouse and grew them organically, and did breeding with them, and then processed the resin like a Jedi master. And, he puts that in your pipe and he's like, hey, you want to have a bowl? And it was it actually humbled me in a great way. I could not believe how strong it was. And I used to remember hearing a friend talk about leaving his house. Oh, I left his house and I was so cross-eyed. And I'm like, well, come on, like how cross-eyed could you have been? And one time, the first time I ever went there and smoked that hash of his, I'm telling you, dry sifted hash, like 99.9% heads, I could barely walk home from his apartment. Like my legs weren't working. I was like, holy shit, this is a real thing. This will just sound like a story one day, because if you've never experienced that, and listen, you know me, I'm no lightweight. I like chain smoke full mount 6-star resin from like 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. every day. And so it threw me for a bit of a loop. And you know, obviously him and Rob teaching me quite a bit of stuff over the years, and reading their books and whatnot. But then slowly understanding, and it was really probably you guys more than anything, and guys like Los Gardens and Joshua Dutch Blooms, and really this community here that I started understanding, like, well, what do you mean you can go beyond organics? And then I understood, well, like, you know, that organic farm down the street there that's growing all the cannabis, like they drained the aquifers for the entire neighborhood and then didn't think twice about it, and then just started paying for water to come in and feed their plants, while all the surrounding farms were like, oh. So I started understanding the differences between creating your own inputs, creating that organic living soil allows the plant to express itself in a way that I just have never seen done, you know, in a salt indoor grow environment. There's something to do with the sun that you guys talked about, the appellation and the terroir. And that's definitely certainly a real thing as well that plays into this whole, you know, all these loops, this beautiful system that you stack upon itself. And as you do that, you know, things start happening that you might not even have a full understanding of, but you can certainly experience it in the bioassay of eating organic and regeneratively grown food and heirloom seeds, and smoking resins that have been grown properly, organically, and have been allowed to express themselves to the maximum of their potential for those particular gene synthases that were present in that cultivar. So
I love
I'm sold.
it. And you've, you know, really experienced a lot of different. I remember watching you go down to Jamaica and just wash plants right in the field.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Take it right out of the field, put it in the ice water, and that's awesome.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That was, you know, another unique place that has a very unique terroir. You know, Jamaica is the only country in the Caribbean that is 360 degrees surrounded by the Caribbean Sea. There's no other country in the Caribbean that has that. And that will create it has created a very unique, you know, terroir for Jamaica that I always told, you know, my Jamaican friends, like, don't worry, no one can take this from you. There's no way to grow Jamaican herb anywhere but Jamaica. Like, that's the niche. Like, your country is the niche. So, you know, do good with it.
And, you know, you've been saying a lot, Marcus, that you've been really seeing a lot of the BC quality of hash going up, and that, you know, there's a lot more flavors and
across Canada.
And you know, this incredible terroir that we have here in BC with the mountains and some warm spots, and then the coastal regions. Like, it's so rich with deep soil, and we've been getting, you know, more people writing us on email and more people wanting to come by our farm. And it just seems like, you know, Canada is really hungry for this regenerative education, and we have so much land, and we're really seeing it in the hash. We're noticing more people are picking up these values and making better hash out of it.
And so British Columbia has like a lot of different environments north of Whistler and Pemberton and that whole growing area, and the Lillooet zone, and all across Kelowna, and over in the Kootenays where we are. It's pretty magical, and people are indoors, but I think we can encourage people to get back outdoors, you know, and embrace the greenhouses, make some really cool greenhouses. You know, we've got them in the earth.
And we're working on outdoor varietals that have just been blowing us away. So exciting, that just totally finished by beginning of September. Patricia,
you guys have totally inspired me, and I'm straight up getting a greenhouse and putting it behind my house here, like a 65-footer, maybe 25 feet wide. And my wife is completely on par now. When it was only for cannabis, she was kind of like, I don't know, like, that sounds like I'm going to be doing a lot of work in there, and I don't really smoke, so I'm not sure, because she inevitably is just the most incredibly hardworking person, and she'll be like doing everything. So, but she said if it was food, if we did like half food or 2/3 food, she could really get into that. So I'm going to work that out in the next 6 months, where I have this become a reality. And who doesn't need a greenhouse right behind their house so they can just, you know, I am kind of in the forest here. I've got just an acre, but I can fit a greenhouse behind here.
And you're close enough to the ocean where you could grow certain things all year, you know, different
Yeah,
perennials.
incredible
and
varietals.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's pretty sweet.
Yeah. Patricia Sunroots, amazing woman. This woman is incredible. Their farm is unbelievable. Anybody who doesn't know about Sunroots or hasn't seen their unbelievable colossal plants or tasted their velvet perps, you're missing out. Check these guys out. I mean, we've been over to your farm. You guys are absolutely magical. Your pantry is something that you could get lost in. I mean, we were laughing. I felt like I could have a psychedelic journey for 8 hours just in your pantry alone and have a great time in there.
And you're one of the Regenerative Farm Award winners, and that's really amazing. You guys are, you know, you're teachers in that way. And you're in Covelo, which is in the Round Valley of California, really special area. And I just love, there you go, big up family. A lot of good people there in that valley, so we'd love to give some special love there to that community and stuff. So please tell us about you and your farm and what's been going on with you.
And what's regenerative mean to you?
Thank you guys for the introduction. Awesome to be on these panels with all of you guys and amazing farmers here, amazing people in general. A lot of stuff. My name's Patricia, my partner's Forrest, and we're Sunroots Farm. We are in Covelo. We grow full-term outdoor, and we grow a lot of food and mushrooms and different herbs as well. And what I could say regenerative means to me, and I'm feeding really off of what a lot of people said here, is a deep dive into the unknown. A lot of what we do on this farm is totally unconventional farming. And I think that those people who seek to farm, whether that's cannabis or other products, you know, there's a certain standard of how we farm. When, you know, I worked for 10 years on different farms throughout the country and the world, learning different people's methods with the wolfing program. So I was essentially working just for housing and food. That was how I made my way into the farming life without having any money or anything. But there's so many methods that say you need to do this and you need to buy this product. And if you have this pest, well, you need to buy this and spray this. And, you know, really with regenerative agriculture, you're letting all of that go. And a big thing I'm always saying is release of control. Not, you know, just within the garden, allowing things to be a bit wild and trusting that you have everything you need. So in our gardens, we build soil all the time. Every part of the year, we're adding to our soil and we're using ingredients that come from the farm, if not from our neighbors, from our local community, where we can, you know, for instance, get hay or different types of manures that we'll use to add to our compost and to our soil. So everything's within 10 miles if it's not coming directly from the farm. That is part regenerative for us, is those closed loop systems. And I really want to just tap into the fact that, you know, every little decision that you're making is important, and we all have options every day in our life to make these small decisions that create an impact. So we're just these one little being on this huge universe, and who knows the size of what this whole cosmic realm is. We're this little person, and I think it's so important that we remember that everything that we're doing is a generation into the macro cosmic world. So our little decisions continue to reflect. It's like the infinity that keeps on going. There's and this, you know, if we look at Fibonacci numbers and the golden spiral, you can see that there's a pattern overall, and it continues to go inward and inward and inward, so that there's a reflection from the outside to the inside and the inside to the outside. So when you're working on your farm, you're working with your soil, you're looking and you're knowing your soil, and you pick up a piece of your soil and you look deeply into it. You hold it in your hands and you're just connected to it. You know that, okay, my soil looks like it doesn't have enough bacteria, enough life going on. So instead of going out and buying something that I think is going to help give it life, I'm actually looking to see what's in my nearby realm, on this property and in my community, that's going to help me introduce the bacteria that I need. So maybe I'll go to my local forest and create an inoculant, a KNF, or maybe I'll just make tea out of herbs. Really, regenerative to me is just something that you're in tune with your world, you're in tune with yourself enough to the point where you trust that everything you are doing is going to be taken care of, and that you have everything you need, and you don't need to seek beyond yourself. What you need is already here. It's just like relating to our bodies. Even we have regenerative cells all the time. Our organs can sometimes regenerate themselves. That's incredible. That's magic. I mean, your liver can literally regenerate itself, and your blood is constantly millions of cells just regenerating all the time, skin. And believe that that is also reflected in the earth. And really, I can't even describe it in words, really. It's just, there's so much healing to be done within our own selves, and that is a reflection outside. And when I hear that people want to be regenerative and they're really interested in this new method of beyond organic growing, it's so exciting, because it's not just that you're now seeking to better the soil and grow awesome cannabis plants or grow awesome medicine of whatever form and food or herb that is. You're also working on healing yourself and changing your lifestyle, because it's not just about cannabis anymore. It's an entire living, holistic approach to life. No longer am I going to seek outside myself unless I feel like I need a guide or something. Then I will reach out. But mostly, I'm trusting, and I'm stepping into the unknown and experimenting and having a lot of fun.
That's beautiful. And I feel like, do you find that when people smoke your cannabis, or maybe people that maybe say, oh, sometimes I don't smoke cannabis because it makes me feel a certain way, but then when they smoke years, it's like, oh my God, this is a whole different universe. Do you
Totally.
find that with people that consume the herb, when you put that kind of energy into it, it comes out like in through the spirit of the plant?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I think intention is so important. And that is part of being regenerative. Like when you have intention with everything that you do, and you're not just growing just to make money, but you're growing to actually impact the world in a positive way, and you have that compassion and care, then totally it goes into the hands of somebody else, and they come back to you and they're like, whoa, like I usually don't smoke because it gives me anxiety, but when I smoke your herb, I just feel so relaxed. And that's the energy that we're putting into our plants. We want you to feel that way. It's totally intentional.
I love it. I love it. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for everything you're doing in Forest on the Farm. Blessings. Jesse from Vortex and Regenerative Farm Award. We want to introduce you to Jesse. You are such an amazing person. You have done so much for our community everywhere you've gone in the world. You have really shown the beauty of it, I feel, and you've really shown the essence of it. I think you're a really beautiful leader and a great teacher. I love the book, the comic book that was created, and about organic farming out there, and the fact that you're a character in that is really, really awesome. And yeah, maybe you can introduce yourself and tell us about the regenerative.
And Jesse, I just wanted to add, you always have the right words to just describe something, and the education that you've put out to the community is so tangible. It's just so easy to understand, and I just want to give you so much love for that. Thank you so much for all that you've been doing.
All the work you've done at the Emerald Cup with the the lounge and everything, and the Emerald Cup Farm Awards have been really changed a lot, I think, for the community. And the filming with La Osa and everything that you've done has it's made a big impact. So give thanks.
What have you been up to?
Thank you so much. I'm humbled. Thank you for your light and the way that you have united community and the way that you have brought together so much education and for better practices and for better ways of life and bringing a family together. So Vortex was a conceptual art piece I actually came up with years back. I was pretty influenced by, actually I didn't even realize how influenced I was until later by this artist named Mel Chin, who did this conceptual art piece called Revision, or God, was it Revision Field? It was a phytoremediation project to clean the soil in a area that was toxic from, I think it was an old paint plant that was nearby. And by doing it as a conceptual art piece, he was able to circumvent a lot of red tape, but then he hired the best scientists and did a real, excellent job of data collection and all of this stuff. And it became this living art piece of these bioaccumulating plants detoxifying the soil. And I thought that was really beautiful. And, I actually completely forgot about it. And, with the cannabis industry and the way prohibition affected it, and especially in our area, we had a lot of impacts as far as the energy use for how we were producing cannabis. So there was lots of underground, large 100-light rooms that were powered by diesel generators, and people are trucking fuels to fill those up. And it was generated by the high prices, $4,200 a pound of some purple fueled that imbalance, and it reminds me of when pests, take advantage of a imbalance or anything becomes imbalanced, you see, all these things happen. There's no way if there wasn't that economic opportunity and think something was completely out of bounds, there would be all that diesel going to that area. But anyway, it was interesting to see all that. And then also all of the indoor growers then moving outdoors, taking those practices that we've learned at the stores. And there's a lot of indoor practices where you do have to be sure, your protocols on being clean and everything is different in an indoor environment. You're creating an environment that could host pests really well. So certain things at the grow store, people, made sense for the practices they're doing. But then taking that outside, you start having a lot of harmful effects on the environment. And a lot of people, go straight out. They're not thinking about next year. They're, you could get busted that year or whatever. So you're throwing out pots, you're doing something that's going to work immediately. So you're not thinking about building the soil in the next year and creating habitat in your watersheds. It's a consumption to an economic gain kind of deal. And, and there was a lot of smart people participating in that. And I saw all of the movements in regenerative agriculture that were happening and climate change, and, felt that the more that we can sequester carbon, the more that we can build soil. Those are some of the most important things that we can be doing as humans on this earth to survive. And so I wanted to influence this cannabis industry because it's filled with intelligent, beautiful people who want to be making medicine towards regenerative agriculture techniques, towards permaculture techniques, towards biodynamics, learning from things that already exist and thinking about how you make something thrive. And so the definition of regenerative to me has to do with the way you harvest energy, paying attention to energy and the systems that harvest and transfer that energy and how you can utilize that most on your property. So a cover crop is an excellent example. We have photons coming down, we have carbon that's in the air, we have nitrogen that's in the air, and through mutualistic relationships of rhizobium bacteria, of the plants pulling in carbon, of that bacteria breaking down nitrogen, you're able to store nutrition and carbon into the soil just by a plant growing, and it's all happening from the air. And so that's an amazing example of energy harvest. And then that gets turned into carbon, that gets turned into nutrition that you grow your economic crop from. And so those kinds of systems, we had the example of the chickens earlier, and that's what an amazing system, that there's a animal that is going to nourish us, whether with eggs or for a poultry bird for their meat. And we're able to take advantage of the cycles of life. And if you have larger animals, they can go and scratch through their manure, keeping down your fly populations, and then they're getting the best meals possible. They're getting grubs and worms, and you get to utilize them in your composting. And then with a chicken tractor, being able to have that nutrition from their from eating and pooping and having that move along. And it's just happening right there in the soil. All the things are happening mutualistically with the least amount of work that you're doing, making a thriving system. So it's that transfer of energy to make a system thrive, and then putting that love into that. And when we started getting more farms like Flower Days and Sun and all you guys, where you're living there and you're invested in that property, and like Dragonfly, you guys going out and like you're just out there, and you don't have a store to go to. You have to get everything from the woods and thinking about the thriving systems. What plants should we be growing? What things do we think about to harvest all that energy that's coming onto your land to make it thrive more and more each year? And carbon sequestration just goes with that. And for me, that's at the heart of regenerative. That's also thinking about your watersheds, the way water flows too. That's an energy, and that's something, how is it being filtered? How are you taking advantage of the landscape, of how you can collect and utilize water the best way on your property? And a lot of times that can be designed in ways where it's very minimal, the impacts and the things that you're doing, just through smart changes in systems. And that's, permaculture is those small changes to create really good harvests of energy and resources. So the Regenerative Cannabis Farm Award was born out of this concept, which we did at the Emerald Cup. We've also at the Cultivation Classic, and we have 2 winners, Sunroots and Flower Days here. And the idea behind that was to showcase these farms, the practices, not just flowers and the products, but putting the practices together with that. And we built this matrix of evaluating the farms, and we're looking at the way they build soil, the way they integrate polyculture, the way the surrounding environment's taken care of, their water use, and lots of aspects of permaculture design, as well as their community work. And it's just been amazing. Everyone has been a shining light in the community, has continued on. All of the winners have put out so much education, and it's felt like a family that's grown, and people have taken it on as kind of a responsibility to shine these concepts. And I just appreciate you guys all so much for the way that this light gets continued on. And the hash, is really cool to hear Marcus talking about the hash. And we have some insane hash ninjas here with Garden of Grease. Some of the best things you'll see anywhere on the planet, both through the insane genetics that you guys get from all over and what you work on, the community that we have of people sharing genetics. You have a Garden of Eden for hash. It's insane just walking through, looking at the resins, and knowing that there's masters who are gonna collect those heads perfectly and clean. And regenerative practices, you don't have oils on it, you don't have sprays on it, you don't have salt, producing your cannabinoids and your terpenes and your all the cells. You have the mutualistic relationship of that soil, of that place, building these amazing trichomes. And I remember Simply Adam, who's an amazing hash artist, first washing some, he normally would only do fresh frozen, but we kind of convinced him that he saw the trichomes of just some trim from some banana OG, and he washed it, and he was just like, holy shit, that's some of the most insane quality, and that's not even fresh frozen. So we did an amazing project the next year of putting everything in with fresh frozen, and being able to explore those qualities through somebody who can wash it so well. It opened up another level at looking at what's important with regenerative agriculture, and that's the quality of those extracts and the products that are coming out of that. You can't compete with it, and it seemed like hash people universally chose the trichomes grown with these soil-based regenerative methods. And it was just really, really neat to see. And the yields were great, the qualities, the melt, the flavors, the sensations. And I just think it's a really amazing way to connect us. And what's cool too with ice water hash, as far as regenerative practice, you can just take these trichomes and you can put the rest of the plant right back into the soil, which I'm sure happens quite a bit at the Garden of Greece. I mean, these bags, it's all like, mashed up, right back on the soil, that whole plant just chop, drop right there. You don't, almost all of that plant, except for like this teeny handful of trichomes, goes right back to the soil. The microbes eat it, love it. And I mean, that's regenerative hash right there.
For sure. I think it's like a total, maybe less than 10% of like, when it comes down to it, then leaves the garden. Yeah. So like, that's really regenerative when I think about like, I guess how much flour, it is that we would bag up and pound up to leave, and not get that nutrient back into the garden, because that's a ton of phosphorus and potassiums.
And then if you're cover cropping and you have your integrated animals, like you are definitely a huge net gain in the carbon and soil.
Yeah, we've seen like, it's happened so quick here, which is adding it all back in and having the worms take over. And now it's like, bam.
And then it's the stuff that the plant already grew from, already re-eaten. It's like almost like baby food, probably.
Right. And I feel it feels so safe and so good now that it's been so many years of doing it like that. And we get soil tested still every year, and it's just balanced. It's all good and even and high, but balanced. Like it doesn't seem like it's like weird in any way.
Yeah, even the water goes back to the garden. We have our hash lab irrigated to a zone of our garden,
right?
Which is really amazing, because there's so many raw cannabinoids that we're not actually getting in the bubble bags, but that are all going back into the garden too, which is really important.
Yeah, that's like if you ever make a tea out of it, it's amazing.
Yeah.
What were you smoking on earlier?
GMO, actually.
Nice.
And
lemon tree kush.
Yeah. But we have so many flavors from you that we have been enjoying.
Yeah.
You were speaking about our garden, and a lot of our garden last year, the genetics came from you, Jesse, and we really appreciate the work that you've done. The banana dog in particular was
hands down
blew us away.
Amazing.
For sure.
Yeah.
We just planted some GMO that we got from you, Jesse. GMO by SFV OG
banana times banana OG SFV dog on the GMO.
Yeah.
There you go, banana SFV dog.
That one's gonna be a hash machine for sure.
Yes, that will be a hash machine.
I'm stoked about that. And then we got the punch breaths and the strawberry guavas in. Everyone's happy. Everyone's stoked. We got the mimosas.
And I wanted to say too that, every bit of our hash material, all the water, even all winter long, which is the time that we can actually run a lot of it. And that's really when we feel like it's perfectly cured, which is many months after we harvest it. And we just like have hoses pumped into all of the greenhouses, all of the garden beds.
And even did a foliar spray, a diluted foliar spray. And I added a little, lactic acid bacteria culture in there and sprayed on. It's just really beautiful.
And also, inevitably, it seems like the more that we do that, little tiny seeds will pop up, and then we were just like, wow, these seeds from the hash extract and everything that came up are really phenomenal. Why are we replanting? And that just goes back to seeing what you were talking about all of the volunteers. And now that we really get to experience cannabis out in the open and be able to have licenses for these things, we get to experience many, many, many years. And we're just seeing tons of volunteers. So we're going to dedicate a massive garden bed just to all of the volunteers. We have no idea what varietals they are, but they're going to just go in and we're going to see what happens.
But you know, we are all talking about the things that we do, and I think it would be valuable to just talk about some of the things, you know, in regenerative farming that you see out in the community or see out in the culture, which really kind of don't fall in the area of regenerative. What are some of the things that we've had to transcend, even moving beyond, like some, like not using pots in a full turn garden, putting our plants in the ground is one, you know, major thing that we've done, you know, as a community.
And the question about Appalachia and terroir and what that means. And Jacob and Carla, you were just mentioning the term greenwashing. You know, a lot of people out there don't maybe even know what that term means. And you all have been incredibly intelligent in defining it and looking at the culture of cannabis and what products are coming out. Could you all touch on that and tell people what greenwashing even is?
Really, the greenwashing is just, it's basically marketing to make your product seem like it's more environmentally conscious than it actually is. Usually you'll see a lot of corporations do it in a lot of ways. Even on like a Cheerios cereal box, you'll see on the back a picture of like an old-fashioned, you know, field of oats with like a red barn in the back and like a picket fence, and it looks like something that, oh yeah, okay, my food comes from there and I want to eat that. And that's not true. You know, if you know where your food came from, then you want to eat that. We really need to be aware of all of the images and information that comes at us and be discerning about what is accurate and what is just somebody telling me what they want me to hear, so I buy the product. And so really supporting small businesses, like now more than ever, we need to be supporting small businesses because everything is getting shut down, and being, you know, conglomerated into the corporate infrastructure. So being aware of what they're telling us in terms of like what you're eating and what you're consuming and what you're smoking makes a big is really important, because a lot of the times, you know, maybe 5 people that they're working with, 5 farms are actually doing good practices, but that speaks for everybody, and it's just not the case, you know. So do you have anything to say about that, Carla?
Yeah, I guess it's really hard to be a consumer these days because there's a lot to have to sort through that's coming at you. And I think, you know, when you're sourcing your food and your medicine, it's one of those things where it's just know your farmer, really take that to heart, because there's farmers markets in most communities now, and if enough, you know, and I mean there's farms doing CSAs now and getting food to people in different ways, and it's really about looking in your close community and seeing where food is being produced locally, and finding those farmers and knowing those farmers. A lot of times you can source a lot of your food from the farmers markets and from a few, you know, really ethical butcher shops if you're in the city, or places that are close to farm direct. And in cannabis, it's the same thing. It's like, how transparent is it? How direct to the source is it? And are they showing you how they're going about producing that product, or is it just words? Are there actions behind those words that you can see? And so it's worth it, because it's really worth our health in the end. And ultimately we all deserve to have the highest quality food and medicine possible, and achieving that, if we can't do it for ourselves, or in whatever ways we can't do it for ourselves, is to look to our close community and to people who are really honoring the practices that may ensure that we have a secure future in our soils and in our environment that can continue to produce for generations. I mean, we're at a point where we really have to look at that for our health and for our future. So that's really where it stems from. And there's, you know, there's things you can look at, like certifications and standards that outline a baseline that you are certain that these baseline standards are being met, and those things help. And then from there, it's really transparency and knowing your farmer and being as close to the source as possible.
Excellent.
Yeah, and you know, Kate and Bobby, you all are really have created some super beautiful products, and it's hard to get everything on the label, but you all are really farm to product, and the integrity that you all have put in it, and what are you all seeing out in Maine that, you know, doesn't, you know, where the practices are not really matching the product, and what does that sort of energy feel like there? And I want to hear about your products and what you all explain on there to define you as regenerative.
Most of our products at this point we have linked to the Instagram. So if you're, you know, interested in learning more about it, you go that route, because it's, as far as packaging goes, it's really hard to fit everything on the label. But as far as products like ours go, I mean, there are a lot of wonderful farms in the community out here, and we've seen a lot of people, you know, doing a great job at producing a product that they stand behind and that is accurate, you know, to their growing practices. So, I mean, that's very cool. We have a great farming community out here.
Yeah, the farming community here is really strong. So we actually have, and even now more than ever, been utilizing our local farm stands like crazy. They've all been so receptive to the changes that have been going on within the, you know, communities and such. So it's been really awesome to actually be able to support more local farms around here.
And not just with cannabis, with all sorts of
all of our
foods.
food and everything, and being able to even barter for food with our products, because, you know, one thing we found was not everybody smoked cannabis. Our demographic was our parents' generations who are used to taking medications in various different forms. They want things that are more discreet, or things that are more convenient, or things that are, you know, just we find people want the better products, and when they hear about them and when they use them, they have just an incredible response to it. And that's been pretty much the most driving force behind creating the product line that we have, is that we have something we feel for just about every patient that we could encounter. So whether that's just, you know, indica or sativa, we do that. But then we also do tinctures and capsules and various forms of medicine that make it more available and appealing to a wider group of people. And the label helps to, you know, portray our message really, and helps to, you know, kind of spread that awareness about products. And when people use it and they like it and they tell more people about it, it's just, you know, you're doing the right thing and can feel really good about it. And that's to us is non-compromising on our ethics and just creating wholesome products that I would feel good giving to, you know, my parents and my family and others. So that's just, for us, products have become a staple as far as what we do.
The advertising and marketing online, it really gives you a way to connect with your customers. So, you know, they can contact us and, you know, we chat with them about our farming practices and, you know, the things we use for our products and how we create them for us. So we're not going to put any poison in our bodies. We would never do that to you. So.
Yeah, I don't know. That's all I can think of right now.
We could talk for a while.
Yeah.
That transparency is really important. It's with so many of these farms, the fact that they convey all of their practices, they educate towards what they're doing, and they show what's happening on the farm. you know, we really know something about that farm because they put all that education out for us. You know, and it's kind of hard as somebody who's worked really hard to put out these concepts and terms, you know, with this community. And, you know, when certain terms are utilized without fully understanding them and what they mean. So I really appreciate this show right now where we get to talk about the meaning of regenerative and what that actually means. And, you know, it's disappointing sometimes when you see a farm that's clearly, you know, far from sustainable talking about it, you know, whether they don't know or they are just really excited about it. And a lot of times that's the case. They're like, we're organic, we're thinking about these things, but hey, it's acres of plastic mulch, you know, that you're producing mountains of waste, and you're talking about regenerative practices. You know, biodynamics is another one people utilize, and that's a really specific thing that means a lot. And there's very, you know, like to claim that actually, you know, you have to know, I don't know. It's just like people, it's upsetting when you hear it just used as a word, like a truly biodynamic farm, or and it's like, are you utilizing these preps? Are you studying all of this stuff? Are you working with the biodynamic community? Like, these are things like Radical Herbs is a cannabis farm that utilizes biodynamic practices. They're involved with the community. You know, Sunroots makes biodynamic compost. You know, like Green Source Gardens, they wouldn't even, you know, one of the best regenerative examples out there, they wouldn't even say biodynamic because they understand what that term means. They have their own term, ecodynamic. They're not making the exact preps and all of these things. So I just really appreciate like people understanding the power and the weight behind these words and not devaluing them. We need to prop them up with as much education as possible and make sure that they do mean something. Because it's really important right now. Greenwashing it's a terrifying thing for climate change right now. If we believe that we're doing good, that we're sequestering carbon, that we're doing the right thing, and we're not, that's super dangerous. Because our energy should be towards saving the planet, towards sequestering carbon, towards building soil, towards changing agriculture for human health and for planetary health. Because right now, the vast majority is not serving that. So anytime those terms are devalued, it's a disservice. And, you know, I have a lot of feelings because this is an art piece for me. This is community for me. And these terms have meant a lot over the years. You know, Bob Rodale, who you mentioned earlier, put a lot of work into this. And so I love the sharing of it. I love the ideas. I love the excitement behind it, but it's more than just terms, and they're not for just marketing purposes. And if you're going to use them, educate yourself as much about them as possible. And if a farm is using them, then really look at those practices, because they should be showing everything about what they're doing, because these farms are doing that. They're super proud of their practices, and they want everyone else to be doing the same. You know, it's not some special secret stuff. You know, people want people to be doing this, you know, the quality work for growing healthy medicine, growing healthy food, and a healthy planet.
Yeah, and I feel like, you know, we created the DEM Pure certification, and now, you know, all of our farmers are everywhere, and we're all putting into it. So we're learning as we go along, and we're really, you know, very careful about the terms that we're using. And when we created the certification at the beginning, we utilized all of these regenerative practices because we knew for sure that cannabis was going to pass tests. It wasn't just like an idea that, you know, was going against anything else. It wasn't just holistic. It was thinking, yeah, very practical. If we set up a certification that's based in practices that we know for sure that every single farmer who follows these will take their cannabis and their products to market, and it's going to pass. And not only is it going to pass, but it's going to cost that farmer a lot less money.
And it's going to be charged up with good energy.
Yeah. And how is it that we're going to be able to keep farmers in business, especially small cannabis farmers. You know, all of these state regulations and licensing is incredibly expensive. And I know California is struggling, you know, going through so much, and Washington too, because it's just hoop after hoop after hoop. And what I really see across the lines here and what we're talking about is regenerative practices can also keep us in business. It can keep the cannabis culture a part of cannabis. And that's incredibly important, because if we lose the culture of cannabis, then just like Patricia was saying, when you smoke that flower, it doesn't have the depth. People are looking for the depth. Cannabis is a catalyst for awakening. And everybody here who is growing in a conscious way with all of their practices right out on the table, this is what I do, this is who I am. You could go to any DEM Pure certified farm and you can, they'll show you everything, because part of our certification is sharing and being community and being involved.
And some of the things that come up for us in our certification as we analyze farms, and as we go places in the way of, as far as greenwashing goes and stuff, is we're really concerned about everything that comes onto our property. And what's different about regenerative agriculture or a regenerative farm from an organic farm is a person can have an organic farm, and then when they come to us to say, I want to be pure certified, that we say, what are your inputs? And they'll give us this, say, a big list of maybe 25 or 30 different inputs that they're getting. What they're getting may not be bad. Maybe it's all even organic or certified, but the fact that a bunch of it might be mined, some of it might be guanos or things that come from areas that are unhealthy for the people that harvest it, or unhealthy for the animals, you know, where they're harvesting it from. And so what we do on our farms is we try to minimize our list of inputs. So to have a pure certified farmer, to have a regenerative farm, we're not just passing a test with products. We're getting that off of our property, which is a bit of a biodynamic principle, because they talk about being closed loop and getting everything off your farm. And when Jesse says not a lot of farms are biodynamic, that's what that means. A biodynamic farm is totally closed loop. Everything comes off it. They recognize, you know, Rudolf Steiner back in the 1800s, how valuable that was for your biome and for your farm. So in our pursuit of regenerative cannabis, we're thinking about the energy that's coming into our property. We're thinking about the energy that's embedded in the things that we use. We live in a northern climate. We use greenhouses. We recognize that the plastic that goes on our greenhouses is not regenerative, it's plastic. So in a way, that plastic is sacred to us. We have to take really good care of it. And we're creating an atmosphere out of it, which is building life. So we feel like we're using it as a positive impact, and it lasts for 10 years, you know, in a lot of cases. So that input is taken into account, and that's why we put the plants in the ground. We don't want to have a lot of extra pots around. And one new thing that we've done in the spring is we've tried to minimize the plastic pots that we use in our nursery. A lot of plastic is used in nurseries. Maybe we're doing a lot more direct thing this year. We're being careful of mice, and we're putting a lot of crop seed around. So the mice aren't just looking at weed seeds to dig up and eat, or just little weed eat ganja plants.
They like our brassicas too.
They like the brassicas and stuff. So we're clearing a hole and direct sowing right there.
And we've just moved so far from that. Patricia, you know, I wanted to talk to you about that, because we are talking about greenwashing and we're talking about regenerative, and it's sort of like, you know, two different opposite spectrums. And what you and Forrest have really taken on is like 100% reducing that, you know, any idea of greenwashing on your farm at all. You know, your plastic use is at a minimum. What kind of things are you all doing that can, when you put out a product, that it really says who you are and what you are, and that you can feel good about it? What kind of things have you guys been up to there?
I think our biggest impact is what we add to our gardens. Like we were talking before with the hash and reusing the material. It's, if you don't make hash, I mean, you should be recycling all your stalks and all of the flour, anything that you're not using, just put it back in the pile. Like a lot of people ask us, how do you grow such big plants? We're putting our waste back in. So the same plant that was growing in that hole is recycling for the next plant. Another thing we're trying to do is always reducing plastic. I mean, like you said, plastic is there in the world. We do have a greenhouse that we'll start with, but what we do is we only need that greenhouse for a certain period of time. So we'll take it down, preserving the plastic even further, folding it up and putting it away. And anything that's plastic is like, it is sacred. You do not want to rebuy product if you don't have to. Other things that we're doing are just planting more plants, planting trees all the time, and planting our future. You know, maybe we won't get fruit off these trees for a couple of years, but we will down the line. And maybe this redwood won't grow for 10, 20 years, but eventually it'll be there. And that helps with shading so that we can grow certain things. And it's all really connected. And greenwashing for us, it is really scary when people are marketing themselves as regenerative or beyond organic and super sustainable without actually having the backing of that, and not actually practicing fully what they're putting out there on their packaging. So I think it's super important for all of our consumers to educate themselves, and it's up to you what you buy. You vote with your dollars, just like the farmer votes with their dollar. We don't need to buy stuff that doesn't support. We don't buy plastic bagged products at all. And you get there. It doesn't happen in one day, but you get there, and you keep walking towards the unknown and keep trusting that you'll get it.
Does anyone else have anything to add to that?
About greenwashing?
Not as a negative term, but more as an educational term, more as like, hey, you know, you may not even know you're doing it if you're doing it, you know, but here's, you know, some of the things that we're recognizing.
And Jesse, you touched on really briefly was, you know, just the acres of hemp. Like here we are now in legal hemp, we're able to grow big, massive acres. It's a plant that absolutely can save the world with its food and medicine and fiber and fuel, all of it. And people are putting plastic down acres and acres and acres and acres. And I've even seen on Instagram people utilizing the term regenerative. And maybe it's without even knowing it. But did you have something more to say on that? I just felt like that was just such a poignant point that you were making earlier.
Well, yeah, if we're going to talk about hemp saving the world, it only will do that if the practices, you know, are ecological. If we're producing a bunch of waste and taking materials from other places to make plastic and to use the nutrition and spray them and doing monocropping with chemical fertilizer and pesticides, like, nope, we're not going to save the world that way. So yeah, it has to be, you know, thoughtful farming, old style farming, just regenerative cycles, cover cropping, simple, you know, integration of crops and rotational grazing, and you know, whatever's going to work in that landscape where you can easily return. But if we're talking about large acres, it's just insane to be using these kinds of resources, and expensive, and ideally, you know, like if things aren't wrongfully subsidized and you know we are able to get the right kind of education out, like it seems like you know, ecological is economical. So you know, the best ecological choices will be what's most adapt for that environment, and the practices that will regenerate nutrition. But it's long-term thinking. You know, a lot of the problems that we had was the really short-term thinking with cannabis. And now that we actually have farms that we know will be there forever, we need to put that kind of love into it, the forever love into the farms that we have, the soil that we have. And touching on biodynamics, we have like some awesome biodynamic farms here too with us. And I was curious, maybe, well, Jacob's here right now. Like, are you, what kind of, I imagine you probably make your own 500 prep since you have cows, and have you vortexed up any or spread any for the spring? If maybe fill some people in on that particular practice. I think you're muted.
Yeah. So the 500 preparation 500 horn manure is made by taking a cow's horn and filling it with manure and burying it for the winter season. And so what's interesting about this practice is that the cow's horn is hollow and it's connected to the cow's digestive system. And so cows actually digest their feelings. So, or they'll poop their feelings. So when you are taking the manure and you're packing it back into the horn and putting it into the soil, it's absorbing different energies from the cosmos that the soil is sensitive to. It's also attracting diverse microbiology that is hard to get into your soil and is very desirable. And so you spray this on in the springtime, and it helps bring the soil to life. And so this is a big cornerstone of biodynamics, is actually using the preparations, and they're made to the horn manure is one, and then there's also horn silica, which helps with different things, and that's crushed quartz crystal buried in the horn during the summertime. And then there are a series of preparations for the compost. And so doing this, you're able to use plants that you can grow, animals that you're cultivating, and creating these your own closed loop system that generates its own fertility on the land that you're living on and working with. And the big part about dynamics is that it's in an individual expression and it's very personal. So your personal connection to your animals' manure and composting that and bringing that back into the land and managing these cycles is it's kind of it's a spiritual experience. And when you're participating in these actions, you really feel that you're sustaining your life, and you're also performing like what I feel is our evolutionary role as humans, which is we're kind of like the assister, like the assistant to nature, and we help build fertility, we help take care of the animals, but we can also destroy it at the same time. And so biodynamics is a big part of recognizing those kinds of things and practicing them.
That's excellent. That's excellent. And I really like the movie One Man, One Cow, One Planet, which is
yeah, that's a great one.
And Peter Proctor's done
Peter Proctor.
Yeah, Grasp the Nettle is a book he wrote that Jesse also makes calendars, regenerative calendars. You can, I don't know if you probably don't have any available because it's in the middle of the year, but anyway, they're really beautiful, and the community helps put that together as far as content. But you've had a lot of good books in that calendar, and that's one of them.
Yeah, every year we put a book recommendation for each month, but we put all those book recommendations up on regenerativecannabisfarming.org. And so there are those resources there if you want to go look at all the books that and there's some extra books there too, but there's a ton of excellent book resources up there if you want to check out. And you'd mentioned before La Osa Films, we have the archive of all the films that she did with us in the process of the Regenerative Cannabis Farm Award. And so our farm visits with these farms. One of the videos features Radical Herbs farm making a barrel pit compost, a biodynamic barrel pit. And during that time, they actually had some horns, and this is a little unorthodox. Normally it would just be the cow manure, but actually took some of the barrel pit that also had all the 502 to the 507 preps added to it as well. And that was stuffed into a horn that they had. And I brought that home to my house and I buried it in my garden and got to have my soil biology process that. And so it already had the 502 to the 507 preps. and it was the 500 prep, the manure. And I pull that out in the spring, and it transforms to this beautiful piece of humus. It's like kind of like a casting or earthworm casting in a way. It's just all these humus building microbes have built up, and just taking the magic from their land, the magic of their animals, the magic of those soil microbes, and letting that process over the winter. You bury it in the fall and you pull it out in the spring, and then you vortex that up with water, with the clean water, and you energize that, and then you go and you spread that everywhere that Jacob was just talking about, and you just brush it out and these dots fly. And I put attention into a few plants. I had a apricot tree that had a fungal disease and was not producing any apricots. It was like one year there was one or two, and then there was none, and then like maybe one sick one falling off, and like some of that fungal like wilt on the leaf and a little bit of sap. And the next year, like I saw so much of that go away, and then all of a sudden there was more apricots. I put some on this lilac that was like kind of sick, and this other one that was this white lilac that hadn't bloomed in a couple of years. And then like the next year it was like looking really good. And this is 2 years later, doing that, like, and they are thriving like crazy, just like producing the most apricots I've seen this year, and the lilacs are just full. But there's something about, I remember just scattering it and just being like, make these plants thrive with that intention. Of course, you want to build soil, you want to cover crop, you want to mold, you want to do everything that's going to take care of your soil. But
that's really cool.
Yeah, the intention is also, I think, a huge part of it too.
Really is.
Sweet. I love that. And when we talk about, regenerative versus
soil building,
and yeah, it's everything, and using what you have on your land. A lot of people are still in pots because they think that might be a good idea, and maybe people are sort of scared to get out of pots. And I really wanted to turn it over to Brandon and Amanda, because you all have like come so far.
Incredible
transformation. And what kind of ideas can you give people to give them a little bit more confidence to just come out of the pot? Let's use the Appalachia. Let's use
build
what we
terroir.
have here. Let's build terroir. What do you have to offer them?
I want to tell them kind of how we did it. We can talk about that. I just got to always say, it's trusting in nature. It's really just not having any fear. Don't have a fear-based mentality. Really just let go and just try it out. Maybe, just try not to fear one thing, and this might be the one thing. So what we like to do, is really, we built a great hugel out in the backyard. We removed all the smart pots from back in the day, and we really dug a nice, good sized trench that we felt good. So I think it was about 8 feet wide, and it was only about 18 inches down, maybe 20 inches in some spots. So then we began to layer the lasagna, and that's kind of like what we call it all the time, this lasagna, because it's like repeating this nice recipe of layers that
and you're Italian, so that helps.
Yeah, so you gotta love that, right? You gotta make a mean one. But the recipe kind of was just like carbon based with the hugel. We added a lot of forest floor, which our forest is pretty diverse, full of oaks, some madrones, a little bit of pine and cedar, and a few other bay trees, and I would say so.
We have laurel bays.
Some laurel bays and a few other ones. So it wasn't too much of just one thing. It was what I call kind of perfect, and so to try to just use what you have, and sometimes you don't have a lot. And I think Patricia was saying it's kind of like look to kind of go no more than like 10 miles, maybe 20 miles, depends your reach of resources to like outside of maybe the city where there could be some farms. And I know Ancient Green, Bobby, you love picking up stuff in your pickup truck, right? Yeah. So like, it's like these type of things that really, will bring you closer to the community right there too. We're going out and meeting the cool guy that has the stuff that you want, and you notice how cool he is because he has these things and they're abundant on his land. So like trying to use your resources like that. We started getting alpaca poop from a guy that sold us the alpacas that we have today. So that's how that worked, you know, like it was really, it was amazing.
And we met him through Craigslist.
Craigslist,
We
yeah.
just looked it up and
Totally.
we created a relationship with him. And through over like 6 months, he was like, wow, you guys pick up a lot of alpaca poop. You want an alpaca? They produce, you know, all the time. We're like, yeah, that might not be a bad idea.
It was like perfect timing. I think we finished with harvest and it was like on to the next project. And we started, you know, fencing out some of the property that was totally not used. It was actually, it's still a mini bike track on the property, which is quite fun, you know, at times. But now the alpacas love it. They love standing on top of the jumps and like doing their thing. And so we're utilizing other spaces like that from like just way back, like, yeah, just getting poop from this guy from Craigslist. So we added a ton of that into the whole mix of the forest floor. And then a lot of bales. We used a ton of bales from a local dude that had 400 acres right here next to us.
That was mostly wild grasses. He doesn't spray or anything, and he just sifts the cow poop back out onto the field.
Right.
And created a really great relationship with him. And now we get beef from him. And so it's like, you know, creating these community ties where we have something that maybe they don't have and they have something that we don't have, you know, and really figuring out what that is and how sometimes just giving someone your time and listening to them is all they want at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of older people out there, especially if you live in farm communities, that have so much knowledge and they don't get to share it. So looking into those people is really important too. And I was going to say, just transitioning out of pots, doing both, doing side-by-side comparisons. We love seeing two things going on, planting, you know, the same clone in two different environments. Try your native soil, you know, and see what's up with it. Don't feed it anything but water and just see what's going on, see how it reacts. I think you'd be really surprised, people that are growing in pots right now, how little you have to water it, how little you have to feed it, and how much stronger it can be when it's really rooted into that real earth. Those minerals, you can't buy those from a grocery store. And so I think that's really important to emphasize too, that you have magic right under your feet. It's just, I think even taking a year and just watching the earth and seeing how the water moves and where the grass grows fertile and where it dies in the summer. And those small things are really great indicators of, you know, maybe you don't need the pot.
But you always need pot. Like,
yeah, that's true.
You know,
I guess
I mean, that's
So-
why we're here, right?
and that's kind of a permaculture principle, you know, to just really observe your land, you know, before you just jump in and start building a bunch of stuff everywhere you don't know, you know. That's kind of, but there's a spirit to the land and there's a spirit to the environment, you know, and that's the way we get good at it, you know, is being able to you know, get our intuition is like a muscle, and if you don't exercise something, it goes away. So we're trying to get better at intuitizing our land and getting to know ourselves and what's growing in the land. And I love connecting with the nature spirits and the spirit of the plant, and the spirit of a plant in a certain area, knowing your environments. And it's a beautiful thing. Steven, you showed us some your land and the transformation that you've gone on your land and
on your Instagram today. That was so awesome. Like the transformation that you've made. What can you offer people? You've come from so far and your land is so gorgeous now. How do you get
what are some helpful tips?
I can't say it enough. Wood chips, mulch of every kind, cover that earth. Any bare ground, cover it. You know, don't let the water evaporate. For me, my yard is terraced, and they built like this little nose kind of right above my kitchen, and it was all made out of riprap. So there was no dirt at all to dig into. And I remember, you know, first applying to be Dragonfly to be certified, and you guys saying, no, you got to get rid of those pots. I said, what? These are recycled amendment totes from out of the landfill. And you guys were like, no way, get them gone. And I'm so grateful that you guys held to that standard, even though they were recycled. I really, but
it is good to reuse things, don't you?
It is good, but I'm really grateful that you guys encouraged me to flip those pots over, and I piled the sticks from my fuel reduction right in between the amendment totes and just push that dirt right over. And within the first few years, I gotta say, they were the smallest plants I ever grew in the hugels, but they are getting bigger now. I have these beautiful 2 native trenches that always produce big, beautiful plants for me. But the hugels, I have really just tried to get them wider at the base by, adding sticks, my cannabis sticks to the outside. And my helpers, they were like, "Are you really weaving baskets around your hugels?" And well, you could think of it that way. But then getting those bases wider, because I had plants that were like listing over the top. I also did a living mulch of the wild arugula, and I realized that didn't work. So for me, it's been a lot of, just working with what I had. I had to build up rather than dig a trench with my hugels, and observing what has worked and what hasn't worked, and making a lot of adjustments. I'm a lifetime horticulturalist. My mom's a horticulturalist, been a professional for 20 years, and I'm constantly learning. There's never a time when I think I got this. It's a constant observation.
Do you ever use buckwheat for your living mulch?
No, I do not. This year is a New Zealand Dutch clover, or New Zealand white clover. Last year it was Dutch clover and ryegrass. The first few years, that was the fastest way for me to get, my hugels were like a chia pet. The ryegrass grew, and it created, like, as they dried out and the cannabis plants got bigger, the grass just kind of flopped over and created like their own hay. It was beautiful, and it was fast. It was a way for me to get biomass and something living fast on the hugels, and ryegrass was cheap, so that was my way to
tech
jump.
And avocado tech would be like 2 things. Oh boy.
The chia tech.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Susan, we were out at your farm, in December, and you had tons of things that reseeded, and it was beautiful just to see your hugels even at that time. So many things going on, so much life coming from
And it was amazing going into the grandmother redwood tree together. Give thanks.
Woo, girl.
Wow, that was special. You made time for that. That was really special. Thank you.
Thank you.
One of the things we've done on our farm, I just wanted to share with people to, is that to minimize the use of PVC, because PVC is really a toxic thing even just to produce. So it's like, forget about how you use it. Just producing PVC is kind of it's bad for the earth. And then it gets really brittle and it cracks really easy. And agroforestry, we went to Romania a long time ago, and I was just blown away with the wattle fences in Maramureș, and in that old world area. And I love that idea of like an ancient future, because we're doing soil tech and all this amazing things, microscopes, but really the root is in the ancient world. And the way that they use sticks was so amazing. And it's so easy. In watery areas, like on our land, we're, propagating using coppice and pollard technique, more things like vine maple, dogwood, there's like 30,
all the willows,
30 kinds of willows.
Yeah, a lot of the deciduous, sort of bushy, fast growing
and
trees.
Right now, we're still getting buds on our trees. So but we cut the tree bundles and take pieces of the tree out, and then you can just put them in the ground and bend them over, and you can use the branches themselves to tie each other, so you can make hoop houses out of wood really pretty easy, out of stick culture. And I really like that. You can also recycle pallets really easy to make seed trays. You can make seed, you can propagate seeds and make things out of old pallet material really easy. And I really like that. And you can even use your prunings from apple trees. You can every, say 8 inches, put sticks in the ground and then weave, like you said, wattle or weave all your sticks that you're cutting off your tree every year. So really it's like this kind of beautiful regeneration thing. You're like, oh, do I want to, the tree could come alive, but that's beautiful. Now we have this environment. So I'm just all about sequestering water and kind of sinking it into our big that we have. And on the edge of all of the gardens, having kind of wild areas and flowers going at all times. And that's all components to our soil. Right now, we're just digging in the most amazing soil in the world right now on our property. I'm feeling incredibly thankful for it.
And it's taken a lot of years. One thing I embrace your noxious weeds, your invasive species, embrace them. They're there because they're thriving for a reason. They're there because they have a purpose. They're telling you, please use me. The blackberries, are just prolific. They're everywhere. They can be chopped up. They can be used. They have a tremendous amount of amino acids and growth hormones. So things that are taking over because you're creating a beautiful environment for it. So why not use it? And you'll find that you just really reduce your costs and soil amendments and top dressing. And like Susan was saying, all of your mulching can all be done with a lot of those noxious invasive weeds. Of course, you want to get to them before they're seeding so that you don't continue spreading them. And maybe also if they are rhizomal and they're propagating through rhizomes, maybe you don't want to dig into the ground, or you just dig out certain regions and zones. But learn how to work with noxious weeds by just figuring it out, like we were talking about.
And smothering it, like part of the mulch magic is smother. So a lot of people don't want bales of hay that have seeds in it. Everyone, oh no, I don't want any seeds. It's going to weed seeds. And we're all about it. Ultimately, the more weeds that are in it is the more diversity of nutrients you're going to have. So maybe you have to, pile it on, a lot thicker in order for it to grow, for it not to grow. And that's going to be, the smother tech that you're using. And that's going to build soil. Exactly.
Pile it on all the time.
Also with starting seeds, there's rapid rooters and those little kind of spongy trays that people use for clones a lot of times are not approved for organic agriculture.
They have formaldehyde in them.
So any spongy clone thing that you're getting is maybe useful, but it's not approved for organic agriculture. You can call any of the manufacturers yourself and find out for yourself about that. What we're encouraging is starting your seeds in your own living soil. That's a really important regenerative quality that we all do, and that's part of taking on your terroir and your appellation. And it's a really cool term to learn about, like what a radical is. Does everyone know what the term radical is to a seed? The first root that comes out is known as the radical. And when that first root comes out, it sort of takes a check on what kind of soil is out there, and it gives it its whole life's worth of ability to uptake nutrients. And I love focusing on some of those details.
And also that radical will uptake micronutrients right away. So if you put you put your seed into direct soil, then your microorganisms are actually going to be entering into the endophytic, part of the plant, which is the plant's own microbiome. So it's really cool. It's like patterning it, giving it a good birth, a birth that's just free of any outside influences, anything that could make it so it's unhealthy.
There's a term called the rhizophagy cycle, and it's the cycle where at the meristem of the root, it breaks down the cell walls of nutrients, which is like a point of magic, and then it sucks it in to its roots, and then it puts it as a protoplasma into the blood of the plant. The soil is your future resin, that it's your future nutrient. And I just am in love with soil. And I think that it is it is the future. And modern agriculture has killed our soil. And cannabis has opened our mind to bring back the soil, bring back the nutrients.
Also working with the soil and the microbiology is giving us the intelligence by ingesting these microorganisms into our body to give us a rightful view and a way to work with nature more easily. If we're never ingesting nature, then how is it that we're going to align with nature? Does anybody else have some helpful hints out there that gardeners and like some tricks that people could like turn over their garden quickly to just easy steps to become regenerative?
Or some ending thoughts? We're coming towards the end of our moments.
Well, this was kind of fun. Brandon was talking about the lasagna method, and yeah, in that, and you guys mentioned the comic book earlier, but there are some illustrations of and actually up top there is showing the air tunnel for building like compost too, and that's actually the Peter Proctor style mixed with the lasagna. So it's kind of cool seeing all these things that, you know, in this comic book form, and these are actually from drawn from photos that we had taken too. But I just thought it was kind of fun. They even show the guy.
That's a cool idea about. That's a cool idea about putting a whole bundle of sticks down and then building a compost pile over it so that there's an air tube going through the roots, which ultimately breaks the compost down faster.
As long as you don't, as long as it doesn't get too dry, you know, as long as you have it covered well and you make sure that just the sides at least stay moist, the inside takes care of itself pretty well. But if you have an air tunnel, you know, it can dry more, but you have that oxygen coming in, and utilizing things on your property, like when you do some pruning, and you got some branches, you can make kind of a structure that makes a dynamic thing. It's almost kind of like a hugelkultur, but it's designed to do a lasagna breakdown of organic materials a little bit faster because you have, and more aerobic because you have that oxygen, that air tunnel going in. But yeah, I think people should look into Peter Proctor and the, you know, One Cow, One Earth, like documentary. You can see a lot of really good soil building practices in that video.
I was gonna say too, like just humbling yourself and knowing too, like when you do this the first year, like with the lasagna method of just layering things, like how Season said, it just it wasn't the best year the first year, but it gets better every year. And that's like really what drives the force of, you know, this like a long-term thing too. You know, it's going to get better every year, and that makes you want to do it more and more. So, and then I was going to say too, like layering more mulch than you might think. I see people layer some mulch, but maybe sometimes not enough, right? You're laughing. Yeah. Yeah. Cause it's funny. It's like this little dusting is not going to really do it. Like kind of when it goes on dry, give it a good 12 inches at least, you know? Yeah. Cause it'll shrink down and compress into a good, like 4, you know? And then that's that mat that you're really looking for, that the sun can't penetrate through. That's going to really hold the moisture. Or just a lot of wood chips, that works too after the fact. Yeah,
mulch of any kind, like you were saying, Season. Honestly,
yeah.
mulch has saved this place.
We've taken tons, big blocks, and mulch just the walkways.
Yeah, we've seen this place transform into such a lush, like wonderland just from mulching. Yeah, the walkways, mulching in between all the garden beds, mulching just everything, putting wood chips down. We were saying if we could just dump a huge pile of wood chips on the like part of our property, like a helicopter, that it would be really helpful to us.
It really slows down.
Them everywhere.
It slows down. It really holds. We're creating a sponge out of the whole property like that. So that's what we noticed, you know, even in the dry paths.
And it creates a fungal defense. We've also noticed by creating this layer of that mycorrhiza can grow in, it's just like a defense mechanism for the plants. It's been amazing to see the pest resistance.
It hops onto the native plants that are all around, so the bugs don't really want to go onto that, and we feel like we kind of have like a 5 acres of like a protection, like this shield that kind of, you know, plants are now healthier and things are just gonna go to the next field, you know?
But yeah, I
And
think
if
simple things that you can do.
I was
if
just sheet
you-
mulch too. Just don't even break up the bales. Just take them and lay them down in the squares that they are, and fill up things like that. And then next year, 1 year later, they'll be melted into the earth, and you'll be stoked on how much it helped.
And say cardboard is another really good one. We all buy stuff online.
Yeah.
I feel like, especially right now while everyone's stuck in their homes, we collect all of our cardboard and save it up, and you can put it in a tote and submerge it in water. That helps it break down a little bit faster. And then covering it with wood chips or mulch. Another really good food for the earth, and something that doesn't have to go into a landfill, you know. And then all your scraps and possibly your neighbor's scraps. That might sound kind of weird, but like, we've contacted our local baristas and got in contact with them and found out which places are actually organic. And we take all their coffee grounds, and we've been able to make an acidic mix and then a fungal mix, you know, and different compost piles like that. And yeah, just using other people's waste, like we were emphasizing before, is so important.
You'd be surprised on how much actually out there is that's like for free. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
I also think that using companion plants and chop and drop, we talked a little bit about cover crops and the buckwheat and clover, just chopping them down and using them. Those chop and drop plants like comfrey and even stinging nettle and whatever perennials you're growing in your garden are adding nutrients to the soil, as well as mulch from animal hair. Like I mentioned in the comments, using alpaca fleece as a mulch, it adds a lot of nutrients to the soil as well. Just using whatever you have, and also going back to not using so much plastic. Like one of the things we do because our springs are pretty wet and cold, we reuse old caging to make hoop houses instead of buying any PVC. So we cut the caging down, and then we'll put like used blankets on it or burlap or some kind of material that we have, so we don't have to purchase any remay or any type of fossil fuel based product. So just again, using what you have, chop and drop, mulch, and it's all there. And leaf mulch too is also a really great one.
You just mentioned buckwheat again. You know, the fact that the leaves cover the soil, the living mulch aspect of that is really nice. Like these plants just go up and they have nice leaves to cover the ground. Then they produce amazing flowers that bring bees and butterflies from all over. So if you just have everywhere that's kind of a bare area that you might not have enough mulch for, putting out like buckwheat and getting that going at the right time. It's really nice in the like early summer when all the buckwheat's flowering and the bees are just buzzing everywhere. In the mornings, it's a treat to utilize, and a really simple thing to do. You know, and chances are it could reseed and come back out depending on how the birds treat you. And then cardboard, I do love cardboard. Yeah, the mulching with cardboard and just doing the soak ahead of time. If you have like kind of a soak, putting that into your worm bin, the worms love it. It kind of mixes with the other things. Oyster mushrooms, you're getting all those coffee grounds. You add a little oyster mushroom mycelium. It can actually help eat the coffee grounds. I've had giant fruits coming off of oyster mycelium from eating massive coffee grounds before. So
yeah, totally. Yes to everything that you just said. I was gonna say we use buckwheat a lot too. I was gonna say if you have a deer problem, it's really deterred deer from trying to eat at our medicine. We just put like a fat row of buckwheat between everything, and they seem to munch that down and not bother anything else. You know, I think just creating more food for everybody. We have a lot of birds here, so we grow a lot of sunflowers, you know, and that creates awesome. They drop poop all over our property, which is really amazing too.
I'm just gonna say, make sure they poop before they leave.
Yeah, right. I think even when you came to visit, you saw the birds. They actually have been taking the seeds and they were wedging them into the nugs, hoping that they could save them for later. Every time we were trimming, we would find little sunflower seeds. It was great.
That's great.
By the way, that harvest party was awesome. Like that was some of the best and probably the most amount of high quality hash that I've smoked in such a short period of time around such an awesome fire with amazing people. And all the different, old ways that we enjoyed it. Like we got to enjoy hash in every freaking which way from some of the best plants grown from the best soil. So thank you guys for that awesome harvest party.
Appreciate you, brother, for coming, man.
Yeah,
It was
an honor to
amazing.
have you.
It was, yeah, that was one of a kind. We got to actually do that more often, like with everyone.
I was gonna say, it's an honor just being here with all of you guys. This is like an amazing circle of just inspiration, and it really lights us up for, well, literally lights us up for next week. It really gets us going for all the projects that we have going on. You guys are all an inspiration.
Carla or Jacob, did you sound like, it almost looked like you were going to say something?
Yeah, I would say, especially for people who maybe don't have a lot of space, but keeping some kind of worm compost going and keeping a worm culture can do a lot for a small garden, and even just getting into your connection of where your waste goes and how it transforms is a big way to like watch something regenerate and feel inspired to do more on a bigger scale for people who are just trying to make a change somehow, and it's a great time to make a change.
A little bokashi, maybe a little bokashi worm bin, even, just saying, you can heady it up a little bit, you can have some fun. As far as the sheet mulching, one of the best things I've ever seen for an orchard, for fruit trees, to make a total transformation in a fruit tree, is totally cover the base of any of the ground with cardboard, and then cover that with a ton of hay or some kind of mulch on top of it, and then at the drip line put manure. Drip of the, and then that goes down and feeds the tips, the roots, and tree can totally transform. There's a big issue before on a couple of our talks, but it is a really good way to treat your fruit trees. Total mulch underneath, you don't want any grass, any competing root systems to the fruit trees, cobbler, and all the important things.
I love what you just said, Amanda. Feed more things. I mean, I think that I feel like if we could wrap this up as far as like what the definition of regenerative is feed more things, give and make more medicine, create more amazing products that are really integral, read what's out there as far as greenwashing, know your sources, know your farmer. Carla, were you going to say something? I feel like, no.
I'm just right there with you. I'm just like excited about what you're saying because it's just what my mind was thinking too.
Yeah, I just love that, Amanda. You just like really nailed it in there. Feed more people, smoke out more people, give people more medicine, the highest quality, the best. We are growing cannabis, which changes people's minds, which we already talked about, which helps people get back to nature and food that helps feed people with nutrient density.
Grow food and ganja together. What's the best companion plant for cannabis? Food. Food and plants and flowers.
Yeah, and turn your allotted 4, your allotted 6, or your allotted 12 in whatever state or province that you're in. We want to be seeing pictures up on social media. We want to be seeing beautiful veggie gardens over those 4, 6, or 8 plants that you get to have. You take that opportunity to grow something other than cannabis, and it gets really exciting. I mean, on one of the last talks we were talking about, it really humbled me when Rishi Rich was talking about 16 years they were taking to perfect a salad green seed. And how we're working in the cannabis industry, 16 years. And I think, breeding and how food makers are putting so much energy and effort into their food systems too. And and supporting small regenerative farmers.
And I like the idea of the aisles everywhere. Everywhere you walk is an uncharted territory. It's dig that up. Just dig where you walk, dig it out, and maybe use that dirt and then just throw material in there. Just tons of material. What do you got? Just look around and you'll find amazing abundance around. Yeah. And next year that'll be your dirt for your gardens.
And take some time, even if you have a tiny little backyard, go out in the moonlight and roll around in your grass and your dirt. See what the possibilities are. Look up at the stars.
Take psychedelics on your land.
Yeah, drink some mushroom
Get
tea.
To know
Get
the energy.
Connected to nature.
So educate the youth. I want the young kids to know too. It's hard to change a old dog to do new tricks, but we could teach the youth to do it. I feel like they'll catch on a lot quicker.
Yeah.
So
exactly. I just
make farming fun. Make farming fun. Make farming cool.
Definitely. Yeah. And our kids are totally carrying our torch that we're flying, and we have an amazing group of early 20-year-olds on our property right now, and you'll see them on our posts and stuff, and we love them, and they're the best, and I just give thanks.
And we've never had the ear of the youth in agriculture like we have the ear of the youth right now in cannabis cultivation and food cultivation. So Brandon, I'm hearing it. Yep. Educate the youth and educate them rightfully. Marcus, you've been doing tremendous amount of work getting the education out there,
and keeping your youth flowing.
Yeah, it's so incredibly commendable. The education that you've been putting out and continue to put out. And appreciate all of you all for coming on tonight and having these meaningful conversations that really touch me deeply and inspire me also to want to go out and plant more shit. Maybe I'll get my headlamp on. I didn't get the rest of the potatoes.
It is a good planting mood. So if you guys feel like a little spunk of energy after this, you could go outside and plant some stuff.
Which brings me to our weekly moon calendar, our astrological moon calendar. So tomorrow, moon is in Taurus. And it's a new moon and it's starting to wax. So it's this beautiful time to take all of the interest and interact, put into action.
This is tomorrow. Waxing season, spring is like a waxing season. Everything is building right now. This is a main point of this moon cycle.
Yeah. So moon is in Taurus, root crops, and then it moves into such an amazing time, especially during the new moon, to communicate those things that you've been holding on to for a really long time, or put something into action that you've been holding on to for a long time. Mercury is ruled by Gemini, so you've been holding on to an emotional thing, like talk about it. It's a really good time for Saturday and Sunday, which also means Gemini is our pollinator time. Great time to plant flowers. Awesome time to get in those pollinator seeds. Also, you can plant cannabis seeds on that day. Not a great day for transplanting, but a beautiful seed cannabis day. But then we start moving into Monday, moon goes into Cancer. Yeah, awesome transplant day and all of the veggies. It's the time. Monday, Tuesday, and into Wednesday is the time to plant all of those fruit and veggie seeds. So this is going to be a really potent new moon waxing week that we can just almost plant every single day of this week. So let's get out there and do it.
Give thanks. Go find some new plants. Go challenge your gardens. Go challenge what's possible. Build a greenhouse. Make a biosphere. I really love what you did, Brandon and Amanda, on your house with your sunroom. They just built a really beautiful sunroom onto their house, and I think it's really beautiful.
Used recycled
every
windows.
house should have a sunroom.
And take
recycled windows at it. Yeah, exactly.
And take all of this inspiration that you've gotten tonight and spread it. Do something awesome and think good positive thoughts and put them out into the universal flow, because Goddess and the earth knows that we all need it. And these amazing farmers and Marcus that have come to you here tonight are sharing their heart. I just have so much deep gratitude for you all for just showing us everything that you are and everything that you put out, and educating your community in a way that is so incredibly important for our future.
And just as we leave this evening, we just know that as the web gets wider, the weave gets tighter, and we're all part of this mycelial consciousness, and we just recognize that we're making our little part of the world magical, but it's all connected. And every time we touch the earth, and in this next week as we touch the earth, we're all touching each other.
Oh, and I was just thinking about how cool it would be, you know, we all celebrate 420. What if we started to create this new thing at 420 where no matter where you are, you just get down and touch the earth, because then you know that thousands of people out there at 420 are all touching the earth too at the same time, and it's pretty cool.
And I'm jumping in my pond every
Even
day.
though 420 is different at different times, I know that, but still celebrating it.
And I'm Wim Hofing in the pond every day. So I'm Wim Hofing at 4 and grounding and smoking at 420. And I still have a lot of time now that it's spring to get a lot of stuff done afterwards.
Love y'all.
I'll eat some living soil for you at 420 tomorrow.
Thanks everyone in Europe, everyone in Jamaica, in South America, thanks Thailand, thanks China, thanks Europe, thanks Australia, all the beautiful people of the world that are watching. We appreciate you. You make a difference. Blessed love. Aho.